All right, welcome everybody. So it's good to see everybody. Well, see most of your faces, but the key thing is that you're here. And I'm really happy to see that. Alani, it looks like you're actually out at the campus right now.
Yeah, I am.
Are you on the Queens campus or Staten Island?
Queens.
Queens, got it, got it. So, oh, cool. William, I wanted to share this music link group. You should look out to on Instagram. Oh, love it, love it. So, is this your actual group, William?
No. This for the music LinkedIn group. I know they were
Hmm.
trying to do that.
Oh, okay, got it, got it. So this is just so William is sharing just some insight in terms of another group that they should that the music LinkedIn group is looking at as well. So I would definitely encourage you guys to take a look at that. If you guys have shared resources that you can share with folks who are in your class or in your groups or just in general, feel free to share it. The more knowledge we have, the better overall. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing more information like that. So William, thank you for sharing that. So
No problem.
thank you. So yeah, so for today, guys, I want to spend some time talking a little bit about the next part of our project. We're still missing a few folks, so hopefully they'll get in shortly. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can take a look at it from here. So just give me 1 second. Okay. Let's see if this is going to work for me today. All right, fantastic. All right. All right, folks. So, we're moving right along in this process, and I'm going to start off by just mentioning that I looked at your interviews. The questions that you guys are asking are exactly what I'm looking for, right? So all the groups are right on the right mark. The key thing, however, that I want to definitely see from that module 3 is that you guys are still following that 4-step process. So I know that you guys just have to put it up on some of your assignments. So make sure you have step 1, 2, 3 is the interviews, and 4, just make sure that you're listing your insights from what you're learning from the actual interview process. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about the interview process for you guys. I want to kind of review some insights from what you learned. And so we have a kind of a packed agenda today. The end of the class today, you guys are going to be breaking up into teams and talking a little bit more about your projects and more importantly about prototyping. So today's agenda, just so you guys can see, today we're going to be discussing, the project, this particular part of the project in module 4. We're going to talk, you guys are going to talk a little bit about your customer interviews and how they went. We're going to have a discussion about prototyping tools at the university, and I've actually invited my colleague, from the Collins College Professional Studies, Max Ergenrother, to kind of sit down with you guys today to talk a little bit about the different prototyping tools that are at the university and stuff once that you can use online. He's going to give more of a general overview to help you guys, to kind of give you guys some insight into things that you guys could be doing, right? And then towards the end of the class, which is probably our last hour of the class, I'm gonna plan to have breakout sessions with you guys. So just these early group discussions on prototypes, right? So, the key things that I want you guys to be considering is, what's your game plan over the next 2 weeks? Do you have enough data from your interviews and from your research to help build some type of prototype? And even to some degree, are you confused? Are there things that we can help to kind of give you guys the insight to help you build an early version of a prototype? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Elliot reached out to me, about just what are we supposed to do? And I'm glad he brought up that question, because now I know that you guys are at that phase where you may be confused as to like what we're trying to build here or what we could build. And I hope that today through module 4, we can help you guys to kind of give you guys some insights to help you in that process. So this is a good time. If you're confused, that's okay. If you're unsure, that's okay. So we're going to go from there. So prototyping. Wait, we need to build something? Yeah. I mean, the truth is that in this process, guys, this is exactly what we had talked about, right? So we're actually at the phase of the class where the conversation now has evolved into, well, we started with just this idea. We talked to people about the idea and about what they want. And now it's time for us to consider, what are we trying to do? So remember when we talked about this at the very beginning of the class, right? What this class is, right? We're trying something new. We're exploring unknown areas of what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to be taking chances and taking risks in terms of how we're building something. And finally, again, it's not going to be easy, right? But ultimately, it's going to be worth it. I know that many of you guys have been, passionate about your own pet projects. Many of you guys are also passionate about just learning how to do this. And the truth is that there's no one right or wrong way. The way that we teach in this class is that this is an age for exploration. This is how we're supposed to examine how we're going to build a product or service, right? And recall that in that process, we also talk about this double diamond process, right? So for the past few weeks, you guys have started to write your own little brief. You then did your own research as to what you're looking for, coming up with all these sorts of ideas. Now you're at this phase of the project, right? Where you're going to be converging to create your first prototypes, learning from your insights, the themes you learned, and the opportunity areas that you learned through your interview process and through your research. So believe it or not, this convergent and divergent perspective is what's happening now. Now you're converging. Now as a team, throughout the rest of the course today, you guys are going to be spending time doing that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out. To kind of give you guys some synopsis, and this was obviously in Module 4 on site, so feel free you can always review this, but I just wanted to give a few thoughts and insights. When we talk about prototyping, what is a prototype? From what has been defined, a prototype is an artifact, that's really built to see if a particular solution solves a particular problem, right? So in this case, it's not always a perfect model of something, but rather it's something quick, rapid, that we can look at and we can examine. And the question that I put on the Blackboard Canvas page is, why are prototypes critical in this, what we call the human-centered design process, right? And the most important thing I can say about like prototypes is that they give us something to test out, to try out, right? It actually provides us with something that we can, what we call, insert in the idea, day in the life of someone else, so that we can see how it can improve their life in terms of the products that we build and the services we provide. And we try to use it as what I like to call to provide what we call small critical wins, so that we can learn how to document those additional learnings and conduct additional research as to problems that we have seen, things that people didn't like, and how we can improve the product on the second iteration. So, in terms of prototyping, how can I develop a prototype, right? Prototyping could be developed in different ways, right? You could be doing a drawing, right? You could actually be doing a drawing on paper. You could actually be 3D printing a product, at the university if you're local. You can also use a digital medium like a website builder or a simulation program if you're into computer science. And if you really are interested, which is totally fine for this course, you can also physically build a small model of what you're looking for, right? So you can also spend time to actually build a model out on your own, and you can show it to the class just like this, right? So the truth is that because of the nature of COVID-19, it's a little more challenging, to do physical prototyping. It's not impossible, but it's a little more challenging. We still have access to a lot of the same tools that we can use in terms of 3D printing, and Max Ergenrother will talk a little bit more about that later on today as well. So there are different types of prototypes that we have at our disposal, right? We have, for example, you could do a movie about your product, right? You could develop a film, to show users the idea in a graphical or visual sense, right? It may not be a physical product, but you can obviously put something out there in terms of a film or something that shows a user what it would be like, right? You could do what we call the feasibility prototype, which is a prototype just developed to see if some of their features that you talked about in, with users are actually feasible to develop, right? We also have what we call a horizontal prototype. And this is an interesting prototype where you show what a user will see. So it's kind of more superficial. So for example, Elliot, to the question that you proposed is like, what are we supposed to build in terms of this artist think tank group, right? If you wanted to build a superficial website on Wix.com or on WordPress or on a site that you feel can show the key elements of what you want to discuss, that's also a perfectly fine way of prototyping, right? The whole goal is that it's something that a user can see so that they can actually understand what you're trying to build.
Got you. So, Professor, so with that, that's like the first phase, I'm guessing, like just like the
Yeah,
screenshots.
Exactly. So think of it this way, and this goes for those of you guys who are in communication arts or in advertising, right? It could go for anybody, really. When you talk about showcasing an early prototype of a product or an advertising or a campaign, right? You're not showing the entire campaign. What you are showing, however, is what a user might see, right? Things can change between the step that you are now and what your final product is. But the truth is, as great advertisers would do normally, they actually need someone to see it early mock-ups. They would actually do a focus group with users to see what that product looks like and to see how they feel. I'll give you an example. One of my groups, one of my not-for-profits I work with, Sending Her Essentials, showed off their early logo version, right, of their business, right? And it's an early prototype. And what they found was that their logo wasn't appealing to certain groups, so they made changes on it and made it into something that appealed to others as well. So there's different ways of how we can approach it, but certainly speaking, if it's an early prototype and the goal is just to kind of finally take your early concepts that people have been talking about and that you talked about and actually make it into something that someone's looking at, that's totally what we're looking for. This is what we call a low fidelity prototype. Super early, super quick. Does that make sense, Elliot?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely.
Sometimes when I answer emails during the weekend, I'm not short, but I might not have the full thought out as well.
Gotcha. No worries.
So, and that being said, I hope that helps for some of you guys as you guys are thinking about things you can do. There's also what we call a form of rapid prototyping, and that's a technique where you're using what we call CAD, or computer assisted design, to develop a model, right? So in this case, 3D printing. If some of you guys are experienced in using the Adobe products, such as Adobe Printing and Adobe Cloud, like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Dreamweaver, if any of these sound familiar, that means you've used them before. That's other ways of approaching it as well. We also have simulations, right? And simulation is when we're actually digitally creating a physical prototype to predict the performance in real time. So it's not just like 3D printing, but rather seeing it through computer-generated equipment. But that's usually if you're doing heavy coding. That means you're a computer science guy who wants to build. I don't think we have a lot of folks who are interested in coding here, but it is something you could also do as well. And finally, the simplest way of doing a prototype is through a mock-up, through drawing it, right? So in this case, with no functionality, you just want to get a visual of the product. You can also draw it in some capacity. For example, for those of you who are doing the studio to go, I don't expect you guys to have the first version of your band ready to go. Like, I just don't think it's possible at this time. But maybe perhaps you might be interested in drawing a layout of what it may look like. That's also fine. And you can also draw early logos of it, and that's also just as fine. The whole idea is to test out the theory and the concepts behind what users want, right? In terms of what your service is supposed to be. And I listed the article on the course website, so you guys have a little more time to review it and dig into it as well. But to be honest, guys, before you prototype and before we dig into it, I want to go back, and I want us to go back as a group and talk a little bit about how your interviews went. Because the truth is that when you're talking about developing your minimal viable product, your MVP here, that low fidelity prototype, it's also important to understand the feedback you got from your users, right? So it's not just about doing the interview, but also about talking through what feedback did you get, what are the key things that need to be in your first prototype so that someone feels as if you're solving the problem for them, right? So this is where we're going to kind of take some time to talk a little bit about the interview process. I want to talk a little bit about some of your interviews in a kind of informal way. We're going to spend a little time between each of the groups to kind of dig into that. So having said that, what I like to do is the following. In your teams, I want you guys to present your findings on your interviews, about 7 minutes. And I want you guys to try to answer as many questions as you can, right, that are listed here. Now, obviously, I know that you guys, some of you have just gotten in. Maybe you may want to spend some time in your teams, before we dig into this any further. I see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people here today. And normally we're supposed to have 11. So having said that, what we can do here is we can break you guys up into teams for a few minutes, just so you guys can kind of talk amongst yourselves about the questions listed here on the site, on this page here. And then what I will do also is I will probably take a screenshot and put it in, maybe I can see if I can add it as a file. And I'll send it to each of you guys so you guys can take a look. And the goal here is to try to think through the interviews that you just did and try to answer, or try to be prepared when we come back to the main room to answer a couple of these questions, right? How does that sound?
Good.
Cool?
Sounds good.
Awesome, awesome. So let's do the following. If you guys don't mind, studio to go, you're A. The artist think tank is B. And C, remind me, you guys have a new name, right? Destined for Destinations, right? You guys are C.
That's fine.
Yeah, right? Is that your name? I don't know. I just want to double check. Cool.
Yeah, that's the name for now.
Okay, cool. I'm sure it can change. Remember, you're in prototyping phase now at this point. So having said that, just please rename yourself, please. And then I will then split you guys up into groups again. And we'll probably do a quick 5-minute group for each of you guys so that you guys can talk amongst yourselves about these problems. I will probably try to put the questions in the chat if I can, and we'll take it from there. So just please change your names now, and I will split you guys up. Excellent. All right, I'm going to set up breakout rooms. Breakouts. I'll assign you guys now. Dennis, what's your group?
I'm in the studio thingy.
Studio, so that's group A. Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna start. Assigning you guys. Assign 2, 3. Assign 2. All right, folks. I'm going to set it for about. We'll give each other about 5 minutes, so you guys have a little time to work through. Maybe I'll do about 6 minutes. So you guys can talk amongst yourselves about the questions. I've set the file through the chat, but I'll also set it in each of your groups anyway. And just take some time, think about the interviews, reflect on them, and try to answer a couple of these questions. You don't have to necessarily put in a Word document, but just have an answer in your mind about it. You don't have to answer all of them, but just answer as many as you can, all right? All right, sending you guys in now.
In my bed because I really could not get out of bed today. But
Neither could I, so I get it.
Professor James, can I email you the most recent version that has it has a 4th interview in it?
Yeah, sure. I will. I'm gonna change this assignment a little bit because I know that some of you guys may want to interview more people. My thinking is that you may want to talk to additional people throughout. So if you want to get another opportunity to upload the same document, give me a minute and I'll fix it on my end. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Excellent.
Okay, thank
excellent.
you.
Do you guys still have the file? Do you guys need me to send it to you guys here as well?
I just took a picture of it. I have it found, but
Okay, cool. Just in case, I'll put it in the chat here as well.
thank you.
All right, excellent. See you guys in a little bit.
Okay.
Hey guys, are you guys in?
Yeah, we're looking through the interviews right now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. In any case, I'm also going to give you guys the file to look through some of the questions. It's in the chat here as well. So,
Thank you.
second. All right, guys. I will see you guys in about a couple of minutes.
All
I think for now we can. I mean, if you're gonna still interview him, that's fine. But I think we'll I don't know. We'll kind of like finish what we have to do for this week and then backtrack.
Yeah, I was just letting you guys know,
Gotcha.
so we have like more insight or whatever. But yeah.
Hey guys,
Okay.
just so you guys know, and I'll announce this to the group. I know that some of you guys may have a few more interviews. You may have people you really want to talk to.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is, while I'm going to open the project up a little bit more, so that if you want to throw another interview in there or another person that you think is important to talk to,
Good.
you guys can you guys will have multiple attempts to submit it again if you guys want. It's a growing project. It's a growing project as well. I know I put a due date on it originally, but when I thought about it a little bit more, I think it's also important that you guys remember this is a process, so it isn't always about getting right to that end goal. But if there's more people you think are important and you want to talk to, make sure that you guys do that as well. Do your due diligence as well. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm backing out of here. So have fun. I'll be back.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
All right, though. I'm looking at her interview though.
Back to the
Benefits of the accepted colony.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys are getting used to that. It's still very different still. Being jumped in from one group to another. All right. So let's all just start, just talking a little bit about kind of, what your insight has been on your interviews and kind of where you guys are thinking in terms of the project and in terms of your final, at least your early prototypes. So I'm just going to share my screen again really quickly. Great. So what I've done also is that I've actually, I'm gonna shift this around just for some of you. What I've also done, just so you guys are aware, is I've allowed you guys the opportunity also to share your screen along with mine. So you guys can feel free if you guys want to share any content, things you've learned, even parts of the interview that you think are important, you guys can do so by simply hitting the share button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. But now you have the ability, just like I do also, to share your content along with me. So, so feel free to utilize that if you need to. So having said that, any group can go. So if anybody wants to take the first, the first step and just talk through how your interviews went, see if you can answer a few of the questions that are listed on screen, and we'll take it from there, okay? Anyone like to start?
I guess I'll start.
Great.
Basically, I interviewed three friends and one child of mine because they're all musicians. And two of them were mature women, such as myself, and two of them were young people. They're all vocalists, although one of them was a sax player as well. What I determined from my interviews with them was in asking questions about doing a website for musicians to connect. All of them seem to be on the page of like looking for mentorship and like coaching type things. Most of them are non-professionals. One was a professional, but is since retired. So sort of semi-retired, I should say. If gigs come in, she would do them, but she's not actively seeking them at this point. So, I mean, that's where my interviews led. So what I thought was going to be like for social networking in an industry turned out for my interviewees to be just mentorship type things, coaching, to become more professional.
Well, that's interesting. It's interesting because you're finding, first you were thinking it could be more social, like they want to interact and to connect with people. But there's a component that, I don't know if your teammates also felt like that was something that was different for them, but that they're looking for mentorship. I didn't even think that was, I wouldn't even suspect that. How do you guys feel
Right,
about it, Elliot? Yeah, how about you guys?
So I got a similar response. I think like the underlying problem that a lot of the people that I talked to had was that the resources need to be increased. So like we want our site to basically like meet that demand of being able to reach out to other people in the industry, whether that be a mentor or just another artist, and kind of just collaborate with that person or group of people.
And also for me, and when I interviewed my people, they talked about how they network by using social media, and it's hard to really get in touch with the people that they actually want to get in touch with, just because like they have higher followers, so they don't really check their DMs and stuff like that. So like Elliot said too, and Patty, just being able to get in touch with these people.
So it's interesting because I think that in that case that it seems like then the key thing that you need to have is you need to have experienced people who want to connect with up and coming artists. So there's two different demographics you need to focus on. And that the second piece of it, which is also important, is that you have to find a way to make it as easy as possible to connect with someone, right? So it's two different challenges that you'll have. So that's something that I think your group will have to explore and to dig into even more. It's not a bad problem, but I think it's going to be it's going to be a unique challenge to figure out how do we do this. And in terms of the prototyping, often than not, you got to think about ease of access for each individual to see what they're looking for, to see the person they want to contact and to communicate with them. And also, the other thing you want to be very mindful of is if you have someone who is really popular as a mentor, that they may not be able to mentor with everyone. So there has to be a way to, to give them people opportunity to connect with people, but also do it in a way where the conversation, it could be manageable. At least that's the way that I look at it from what you're telling me so far, right?
Yes. I think really it's kind of a way where you can combine Instagram and our website, of which if you're interested in that artist, that up and coming artist, you can click on their profile and get all the information about, their music as well as their demo tapes all in one site. So that way, you can make a judgment whether you want to work with them or not.
Right. It's almost like, in a weird way, it's almost like dating. It's like dating apps again, in a funny way. Just because you look cool doesn't necessarily mean I want to talk to you, right? And I think that's going to be something to be mindful of when you're building this out. But it could be something big here. So I would suggest, if you guys need to do more research, Alani, I think you said something along the lines of you may need to do a little more. I mean, talk to a few more people about this. That's also fine. For the entire class, I'm going to also open up the project for Module 3 again, not so that you guys can do it over, but rather to enhance it further. So if you guys want to resubmit additional interview that you're doing to get more research and to also close the gap in terms of any information gap you may have, feel free to do so. I'm going to open up the tab multiple attempts so you guys can do that multiple times, okay?
Yeah, because I feel like if I talk to the expert, I get to see how he feels about helping, really helping people who need help. I feel like I only interview people who need the help and not a person who can actually help.
That's a good question. And that's why this process can flow between this time of trying to get to a product, but can also flow back a little bit in terms of maybe we need to talk to another person. So, and I encourage everybody here, if you want to talk to more than 4 people was the minimum, you can do so. It only helps build the entire project from start to finish. So, Alani, I think that's a great point. So if you guys need more time, I'll open the project up to multiple attempts. Colleen had a similar question for me from her team as well, and we'll do that. So that's great. All right, guys, that's good work. I think you guys have a couple of different insights as challenging what you're learning. So let's dig into that later on in the class towards the last hour. And for now, let's go to our next team. So whoever wants to go, either between Studio to Go and Destined for Destinations, which we'll think of in a new name soon as well.
Yeah, I agree with Alani and Patty and Elliot that I personally interviewed mostly just the people that would actually need the service, but not really the experts. We would need an actual engineer, producer, and stuff like that. But all the artists that I interviewed were really just speaking about how the frustrations of recording and not having the quality equipment. And then when it came to COVID, they really were just talking about how communication between engineers or producers were kind of out of whack because people had to deal with life and really just dealing with other artists and stuff like that. So I feel overall it would just be the accessibility to quality equipment. That's what I got from my interviews.
Yeah, when we came together and we looked at all of our interviews collectively, we came to the conclusion that the biggest problem was that that they didn't have the quality equipment, or even if they did, it didn't sound the way that they wanted it to because of the studio where they were going.
I have also a question for you guys for Studio to Go. Did any of your interviews also discuss safety concerns with COVID?
Mine didn't, personally.
Okay.
Yeah, mine didn't either.
Okay. So
That's actually crazy. Yeah.
No, it is, and it may not be crazy. I mean, it could be that some folks don't care about it. I was just curious because, in the nature of the early model of the idea in my head at least, was that it would be a studio that would be a closed space. So, I mean, honestly, folks now are venturing into studio spaces now. They're staying 6 feet apart. They're wiping down equipment. It just was a question I had in the back of my head. Didn't necessarily mean that they were thinking about that. But if they're not thinking about that, then that's not a bad thing. It could just mean that you just need to be prepared in case a question does come up. So it's always an idea, and that's a quick, easy fix. Have some disinfectant wipes after you use the equipment. Those are like the simple questions that you could throw out there. But it's just some thoughts that you may want to throw out there as well. Any other insights you guys got from your interviews? Any other questions that you found that you were able to be answered from the interview process?
Another thing we found was that people mostly just didn't have like the time to go to a quality studio or to the studio that they like to use. So we found that we thought it was a good thing because our whole product is, we come to you whenever you need it.
Right. Absolutely. So, I mean, and I think then, like, as you mentioned, William and Amber, I as you guys are thinking about this, then the other side of it that might be helpful is from talking to an engineer or somebody who's like the well-rounded person who would be willing to help, like, give people that studio time, and what is the type of cost structure in order to, pay that person to stay in a van and drive it to locations, and also too, that is enough money so that like you're making a profit off of it. So that could be a down the road question, but it is a question that you may need to start asking as well if you haven't done so in your interview.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's just that's the next piece that you'll kind of dig into. But for now, what you guys seem like already, the interviews are helpful because they proved some of your hypotheses to be true. It also allowed you guys to kind of dig into this notion that there's more, that there is something, that there is a lack of the availability to do those things. And two, the other thing that we'll probably need to dig into is a cost structure. But again, this is not a sprint; it's a marathon. So you guys can talk to more people and try to kind of dig into that even more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. No, that was good work. That was it. I mean, all the interviews look really good. So I like that you guys are really getting into asking those pretty critical questions. And last but not least, I guess I'll call on Destined for Destinations, name patent pending.
So yeah, we all interviewed people ranging in our demographic, ranging from the age 18 to 24. And then what we all found was the biggest pain was that cost of travel. That was an overlapping problem for everybody that was interviewed. And then the way that we said we could fix that is by having the travel be a lot cheaper or hopefully free, since it is supposed to be a nonprofit organization.
Yeah, we also found that there were a lot of individuals that said yeah, I would have loved to study abroad in high school, but there was only like 1 or 2 programs offered at my school, and they were usually very specific, like to a discipline. Like the science department sponsored a trip to Costa Rica for a week, and how expensive it was. And so I think also there's just kind of sometimes a general lack of programs offered by high schools. And we also had a high school student who said she did travel in high school, but she did it with her family, and she said that she wanted to with her family because she didn't feel as comfortable going through a school trip. And then there was a different individual who talked about safety concerns as well.
Right.
So yeah, there were definitely like, I would say a lot of our assumptions were like validated. I think like the main one definitely is cost though. And then there were a few college individuals who couldn't really travel because of through a school program because of their academic schedule and wanting to transfer. And so that's also something to keep in mind is like the way that study abroad programs are set up. And so yeah, I think reach out to our study abroad program actually at St. John's.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because one of my comments on your assignment was that I think you guys need to speak with one of our folks at St. John's, and I've talked with, and I think I can get you guys a conversation with our vice president for international programs, Matt Cucciarelli. He's a great guy. He has worked with Global Cities programs pretty much his entire career. So he could speak. He could speak on a little bit about like the future of the industry as well in terms of one, what companies might already be doing some of that notion of helping students to travel. And also the second thing he can probably do is to kind of give you insight, I think, a little bit on why certain groups, like why African American students are not traveling or not going on the study abroad experiences to help validate some of the concerns or some of the comments or some of the theories you have as well. So that might be helpful. I don't know if that's something you're interested in, but he would probably be a good resource.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because I was gonna reach out more also just to see like if they had any statistics about the demographics of the students who do study abroad through St. John's. I don't know
Right.
if that's something that is like public information or how they do that, but I would rather meet with someone who you have a contact with than just to reach out randomly to the office.
Yeah, let me today after class, I'll send an email to our to him as well and just ask him on behalf of you guys if it's possible for you guys to sit down with him for a few minutes just to kind of talk to him a little bit about study abroad programs, the impact on African American students. He actually had just finished a conversation on racial injustice in general. He led that discussion at the university. So it's one of those 5 conversations that we've been having. So he probably would offer some insight on it as well and to offer some feedback. So hopefully that'd be helpful. So I'll set that up for you guys. I'll email him. I'll put you guys on the email and we'll kind of take it from there.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. So looking at time, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I want to take a look to see also when my colleague is going to be stopping by as well. So just give me 1 second here. Just gonna check real quick. All right. So yes, he looks like he's stopping in at 11:45, and I actually had scheduled us for a brief break in between. So a couple of things before the break starts. I want to also discuss that one, I think that your interviews are going really well. I think that you guys are getting the insights you're looking for. How do you guys feel about this process so far?
It feels right. I mean, it's good to get a climate feel for what could the potential be.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that now. My colleague had just stopped in actually here. He's connecting too. But anybody else, how do you guys feel about the way that the project is flowing through?
I think it makes sense. Like you always have to do your research, and I don't think you ever want to just start something based off of your personal assumptions. I think you really have to like go to your target audience and ensure that you're not making like a mischaracterization of like the target that you're trying to like help, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I think that's fantastic, and it's just it's good to hear it from you guys because we're trying to validate to make sure that we're doing the best job to teach the course in a way where it's practical. So this doesn't just have to apply to our projects here. It's applicable to essentially anything that we do here in terms of building a new product or innovation. So one last thing I will throw out there before we take a small break before we let Max take the wheel is the following. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. there is one thing that I will mention to the class here, that this year we also have Pitch Johnny, which has gone completely digital. It's a competition that I run with Dr. Luca Yandoli, who also helps run the innovation program. Basically leads the program. We really assist him in making it build out. But we run this competition every year. Pitch Johnny allows for students to actually pitch their own individual business ideas. And this year we actually have a full competition where for-profits can actually win up to $1,000, and not-for-profits the same as well. So here's what I'm willing to do for the class. If you are interested in competing, I'm actually offering extra credit for this as about 5% on top of your total grade for the semester if you submit. And if you make it to the second or third round, you'll get an additional 5% on top of that initial 5%. So basically 10% essentially on top of your final grade. So if your grade is like an 80, it could potentially be a 90. If it's an 80, it could potentially be an 85 if you at least compete. So I know that many of you guys have your own ideas, things that you want to work on this semester that we may not be doing in the class. I think Colleen had a pretty interesting idea as well, and I recall that it was about helping those who need to keep identification safe, and that basically would be essentially a non-for-profit. Those ideas could still be utilized in a different way. So I would recommend the applications, which are a video application, 3-minute pitch of your idea. We talked about pitching last class. That is due on October 15th. I'll put the details on the course website, but if you are interested and want to actually take advantage of that, that can help balance out your grade for this semester. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an add-on to what we normally do as well, in that regard. So having said that, again, 5% if you apply, an additional 5% on top of that if you reach the second and third round of the competition. So, this could be a good way of winning some money. Obviously, everybody can use it right now. And at the same time, being able to actually have the opportunity to really have your idea heard by the world. So in this case, the competition is a little different. We're actually having a round 2 is a popular vote, similar to if you guys have seen American Idol or The Masked Singer. These are the shows I watch, but it's a popular vote in round 2. In round 3, it's a pitch off, a live pitch off like this on Zoom or WebEx, and we calculate the scores between round 2 and round 3, and the winners will receive the prizes as listed below on this page. Okay.
Can you send us the link?
Oh, absolutely. I'll put it in the chat. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, so I'll put it in the chat for you guys to explore. And kind of go from there. We'll take a 5-minute break. Well, now 4 minutes, but we'll take a small break to give you guys a chance to kind of take a quick break. And I'm gonna have Max join us on the call. He's already here, but yeah, but he will. But I'll introduce him in a few minutes. Okay, so 5-minute break.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Max. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. This is my world. Teaching.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. How are things in the office?
Relatively quiet. Had to help Jin a little bit this morning, and got to speak to Glenn about the Canvas thing that we're going to put together.
Yeah. No, I think that looks really good actually too as well. So that should be fun.
Yeah. And yesterday was crazy, juggling work with Grant. Grant fractured his arm, so.
Oh man.
That's been fun.
Is he
on the monkey bars?
He's still in pain now, I presume.
Yeah, but it's better. He's got Motrin and he's got his cast on now.
Oh God, I have never broken bones as a young guy, but.
And this is the second time that he was with me at a playground, had to go to the hospital. I'm a bad influence, I guess.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh,
So yeah, So yeah, I think for now, you came in just in time. So it looks like I'm timing everything correctly. So
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll go through my little spiel. If anybody has questions and stuff, we'll take care of it. And then,
yeah, definitely. I mean, take as much time as you need. We're flexible here, and the students here are all great. They probably all hear us talking, but they're all great.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I won't give away any trade secrets.
No, don't give away too many secrets. So, but yeah, I think this will be good for them as well. And we have a couple more guest speakers coming, not today, but throughout the next couple of weeks in the class as well to help them. I gotta get back to Eric Alvarado because I think his notion where I want him to fit in now fits in with like model prototyping, which is basically right after your initial prototype, like, how we would take a game and test it out with a small group of people. I want him to kind of see that. I want students to kind of see that a little bit as well. So that should be fine.
He does quite a bit of that. I know he travels a lot for the game conventions and things like that. I've helped him on a few physical prototypes so that he could go out and do testing of them.
Right. So, well, that's cool. I think we're about to get started. I think we have about another minute or so.
Sure.
And I think I scheduled that meeting for you and Glenn
1:30
and 1:30. Yeah. So
after this, I'm gonna drive home.
Yeah. Oh, home. Yeah.
And
That's
then
probably a good
I'll
idea.
pick up that call as soon as I get on there.
That's probably a good
Otherwise,
idea.
I'll be out of here a little bit too late.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So
I think I'm due here until 1. But I mean, we're on
at 1:30
until 12. So I'm not going to be until 1 o'clock on here.
Gotcha. No. It's up to you, really. And I'll explain that actually in about a second or two.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Hey everybody. All right. So I think we're about to get started. So just give me a holler or a thumbs up if you're here and ready to go. Cool. Seeing it. They're coming in. Devon, Colleen, Dennis, Elliott, you guys are in?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, very good. So, like I said about Pitch Johnny, you guys are more than happy to take a look at that. I will post more information about the extra credit for the class that will be offered. I would recommend everybody here, if you're an entrepreneurship student, you should at least consider doing the Pitch Johnny competition, in general. But I would recommend you guys to please take a look at that. At this time, I'm going to share my screen to go into the next piece of the presentation as well. All right, folks. So, like I said, we have a guest speaker today, and throughout the time of the course, I'm actually adding in guest speakers as we get to certain sections of the course. Our next guest speaker will either probably be Eric Alvarado from our IT department, who does a lot of prototyping in terms of games. But for now, we have Max Hergenrother. Max actually is our Director of Technology Operations here at the Collins College of Professional Studies. He's my coworker. He actually, it's a funny story when we're looking to hire a new director for this position. We interviewed a bunch of people, a lot of IT people, a lot of folks from different areas and industries. And what we liked about Max was the fact that, and I said this in the room, I said, maybe we don't need an IT specialist, we need an artist. We need somebody who can actually see the big picture and can draw it out. And what's interesting about Max is that he's also an adjunct professor in art and design in St. John's College. He teaches courses in media design as well as 3D printing. So he's really good at kind of modeling things out. If you give him a vision, he'll draw it out for you, and he'll also give you the insight in how to do it. Ultimately, he is an artist. I'm going to send his website off for everybody to take a look at his work. And it's actually, I'm just going to show it real quick because I think it's actually quite good overall. So kind of give you guys an idea of the things that he's been able to do. You'll probably wonder why have an artist in a creativity innovation? Well, because it's creativity and innovation, and it's important that we have people who are able to visualize and to see the big picture as well, and be able to draw it out here. He's also been able to do various different projects in 3D printing as well. I think honestly at the university, he's considered one of our leading experts in 3D printing. And to kind of show that as well, he's also an alum of St. John's University, St. John's College as well. Over the summer, which I thought was pretty cool, which I always think is pretty cool, Max led the charge in terms of utilizing our 3D printers, which are not being used to actually print face shields for the various hospitals. He created essentially thousands of face shields alongside with partnering with IT. He will be the first person to tell you this is not something new, but it also takes somebody to actually think about utilizing the resources you have to produce something. That's why I think he's probably one of the leading experts here at the university in terms of creativity and innovation, because he's also thinking about how we can better utilize the resources we have in order to find out and solve the problems that we have today. With that being said, I'm going to leave it for Max to kind of lead you guys through a small presentation on kind of all the tools that we have at the university and even some of the digital tools he may be able to help you guys with over the next 2 weeks as you guys are building your prototype. So with that being said, Max, you can take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet all of you digitally, and thank you for the nice introduction. It was really nice. I'm going to share my screen for a little while and go through. I know.
Is it working?
I'm going into system preferences to allow me to share my screen. Excuse me for 1 second. All right. All right. Should be able to do it now. There we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so Kevin was saying that I do some work with 3D modeling. These are 3D printed models that I have made recently. This is my Instagram feed. I do a lot of the 2D illustration work as well as some 3D modeling that I've done for toy companies and independent. These are 3D models that you're looking at over here. And these are going to be the 3D printed models that are equivalents of them. So it gives you a little bit of how I particularly use them, but I'm going to go through some pretty general observations of how we can use 3D printing and some other tools that we have here at the university in order to be able to really take advantage of what you might be able to want to create. So I'm going to focus for a little while around 3D printing. 3D printing is a relatively new tool that I've used. I've always seen tools that we use for creativity to be able to get concepts to reality, whether they're putting things on pencil or paper or coding in a computer or creating some kind of physical prototype to be able to use or some sort of art or artifact. These are all tools that will get us from our concepts to the delivery of our completed ideas. So the way 3D printing works is we come up with a concept. We can use a whole host of different CAD design programs essentially in order to develop and model these. And I'll go into depth on what some of them are, but a really easy one to get everybody off and started that was developed for kids that are in K through 12. And I actually have a 6-year-old who has been modeling with me at home and starting to 3D print because I have these 3D printers. But I'll give that as a first step and then some names of other software as you get maybe further along that you might want to get involved with. But you start with this 3D design, which will come in the form of a CAD design. You'll decide what kind of materials this thing wants to be, send it to a 3D printer, and then it get exported out. And after it's 3D printed, there's a viable product. So the way that this works is the process is we have this CAD file. That's the gray pyramid that's on the left. When this thing is created, you have to find a way to make it into a physical object. So you'd be able to use a program that's called a slicing software. When a slicing software, think of it like a slicing for a loaf of bread, like a machine that slices bread. So you're going to have this physical object and you're going to see these little horizontal bars on that pyramid there. That thing actually the program actually takes and cuts up your model into a whole bunch of little thin slices that can be extruded as plastic. And then the 3D printer is going to layer at a time, start growing these. And so because I didn't embed anything, I am going to just quickly jump out of this and give you a quick little recap and show you what the physical process looks like for a 3D printer in case you've never seen it. So what you're looking at is the head of a 3D printer, and it's starting to use that filament roll and grow a very fast forward motion. This is a time lapse, an object that's being created. The head is moving back and forth, the head is moving back and forth, but this is creating object number 1, and then object number 2, which is going to be the head of Groot. And then they get assembled together. So if you've never seen that happen before, at least you have kind of an idea of how this works now. So this is the little head 3D printing and come out with your object. So there's a lot of advantages. I want to focus on a few advantages that you can think about for whatever you're designing. If it's a physical object, why some of the industry is leaning towards this and why this is a technology that has really evolved the way we do business. And I'm going to go through the first of a few of these. So we have this rapid prototyping ability. And the speed of it at which we can use it. We have the ability to CAD design something, run it into a model, 3D print it out, and it can be done really, really quickly. So our designs can be modified and reimagined and reprinted very, very quickly. And we can make iterative changes, different sort of changes to our design very, very fast. So we can use, I'm trying not to read the stuff that I have here, which is so hard to do. With shipping that is fully figured in, what used to take months or a year to design a product can be compressed significantly. So 3D printers on their own are relatively slow. If you put a part on, it may take a day or a day and a half or a few hours or 2 days to finish this product. But if that is prototype 1 and you take it out and test it, and you have to go back and make changes. In the past, we would have to wait for the prototype to be manufactured, taken back to the company, tested, changes made, and repeat that process over and over and over until you have a full working prototype. Now, when you're shipping back and forth and when you're doing this, this could take upwards of months or a year in order to get something to come to market. Now we can change these things, and we have the only lag time is actually printing the new piece and testing it. So for small businesses and for a lot of big businesses now, this is a significant change in the way that we create products. We have the ability to print almost anything that can be put onto a print bed. We don't need to have tooling. We don't have to have CNC machine shops. We don't have to have a lot of these different things that were necessary in order to make physical objects in the past. So one other thing that's really great about it is we have costs, which are reduced costs. So these stacks of spool that look like string, these are actually filament. The filament is a plastic that is put into a 3D printer, and the 3D printer uses this as its molding material. Think of a 3D printer like a very, very accurate hot glue gun at its tip. And it uses X, Y, and Z coordinates in order to put down this hot plastic and make layers like I was just showing you. Now, this plastic or other composite materials that it uses are relatively cheap compared to the costs that it would take for reductive, because it's an additive material. You're only using a cost, there's not a lot of scrap. If you're using a milling machine or something like that that is going to make a prototype and you're carving it out of aluminum, you have to buy a block of aluminum, you have to have the machines, the tools, for each of the cuts that you're going to make. You have to carve away materials, you're losing material, sending it for recycling, hopefully, but all of these things become extra costs where most of this stuff is, you know, what you put in, 90% of the material that you're actually using is going to go towards the actual prototype that you're making on the 3D printer. And then after the 3D print is made, you can either recycle the lot of the material. If it's a biodegradable material, you can compost it and put it back in and it will decompose. Or you can, you know, play around with different materials all on this one machine, which substantially saves a lot of time and effort and money on other things like labor costs of machine shops and technicians getting involved and things like that. As I was alluding to, we have flexibility in the way that 3D printers work. So you can, as long as it will fit inside the build plate, which is the volume that the 3D printer will build in, you can pretty much use any 3D printable material. Now they have stuff that has carbon fiber weaves, they have flexible materials, they have transparent materials. You know, the list of things goes on and on. They have some that have metal in them, they have some that are made from wood. There's all sorts of different ways to put these materials in and envision what you are trying to do. I have this little drill that's on the side. You can see it's made out of some different colors of plastics. With traditional manufacturing process, you know, each part that you change is going to have new tooling, new molds, new dies, new jigs, all of that kind of stuff. You know, in 3D printing, you just need the slicing software, the 3D printer, and the different kinds of filaments that you're going to use. And now, you know, where that also lends itself to be very beneficial is you can make very, very complicated geometries that can be printed with 3D printers that you can't necessarily make with the limitations of things like CNC machine shops. So really it's, you know, you're envisioning your shapes, whatever it is that you have an idea for, and if you can fit it inside a 3D printer and you can use the materials that correspond to it, you know, there's a lot less having to worry about how you're going to physically manufacture the part because of the way that 3D printing works. So you can use different colors, textures, different kind of chemical properties. You know, they have conductive materials that have metal in them. Like I said, flexible ones, high temperature ones, the list goes on and on. And we have, unlike people who would need to be specialized in a machine shop for a particular kind of craftsman, you know, any designer who can operate the 3D printer can, you know, use it for a whole bunch of different kind of materials or possibilities. And this kind of gives you a competitive advantage because now we have, you know, high speeds for iterating your prototypes. You have lower costs, and therefore you can reduce the product life cycle that you have for any physical objects. So a business can theoretically improve or enhance a product without scrapping their investment because they had, you know, 10,000 or 20,000 of these parts made that they have to, you know, sell off before they go back to the drawing board. If you're using viable product for manufactured through 3D printing as your end product for your business and not just a prototype, you don't have to worry about design changes. There is an up-and-coming EV company, Tesla, and I look at teardowns of the cars and things like that, and they have found out that while they're getting things incrementally changed within their vehicles, they've found 3D printed parts before the injection molding parts get put on. If they're changing a part to better suit their design, they're actually band-aiding with some 3D printed components actually physically working inside the cars. And I thought that was very interesting. This takes even high-end production lines of automotive industry, and it's used a lot in automotive and aerospace, as we'll see, you know, and reduce the amount of changes so that you can adaptively iterate your products along the way. It allows for cost-effective marketing testing. You know, you can get a physical object, and instead of explaining your ideas to people and having something that may be lost in translation, you can hand a physical object to somebody and have them interact with it and be able to, you know, realize this thing in a real life situation, hand it to them, have them hold it, have them play with it. And, you know, there's a lot more that can be learned about interacting with an object rather than just, thinking about an object. So this also pushes into the fact, because everything is made one at a time, traditional manufacturing will go and do one operation for a whole bunch of parts, then, cut the top, and then 10,000 parts, get the tops cut off. Then they go back to the next operation, a whole bunch more get put on. 3D printing actually makes a completed part on a build plate one at a time. So you are able to have a better quality control and reduce the amount of defective or bad quality products that you may have on a product line. So if your product is able to be used with 3D printers and 3D printed materials, you have better control over having a high yield rate of successful products that you're going to be selling, as opposed to somebody made a mistake on step 2 and it didn't get noticed until step 12. And now if you had 50,000 parts that were being manufactured, you've just scrapped all of them in that line and having to start over. And I know this because I worked as a teenager outside of high school before I went to college in a machine shop. So I've seen this happen firsthand, and it's very disheartening when you have invested all of this material costs, hours of operation, electricity, and so on, and then we have noticed that something went wrong that wasn't picked up on, and have to go back to the beginning of the operating in order to create the parts that you're looking for. So it's much more easily controlled and monitored when you're doing small batches from step 1 is step 10, and that's the whole completion of it. And then because of that, you have risk reduction. You are having consistency, quality, and you're mitigating the risks on your business because you're taking out a lot of the negative attributes that could happen along the way, so that you can have more of a return on your investment of your materials and operational costs for these things, and be able to have a better overall pivoting point of how you can change your product, again, on the fly, to adapt to markets. And then the last one that I want to talk about in these benefits is sustainability. So with 3D printing, there are fewer parts that need to be outsourced from manufacturing, and you're going to have less environmental impact. And the reason is that you are now able to create all in one spot your manufacturing process, and you'd be able to actually theoretically manufacture and distribute locally and not have to gamble on how many products you're going to need. So in mass manufacturing, I have a friend, I'm in the arts, you see I did some toy design, and he was a lead R&D at Hasbro for decades before he went into his new career of software engineering. And he would be involved in making decisions that were taking, let's say, a action figure toy or a toy line, and deciding how many of those would they need to make. How was it going to be 10,000, 50,000 of them? What was the cost that they were going to have? What was the advertising cost that they were going to put involved with them? And they were going to have to make an assumption of how many they were going to sell. And then at the end of all of this calculations, they actually make them, and they go out on the shelf. And if they don't sell well, most of them going in landfill. So you've put money into advertising, you've put money into manufacturing, let's say 50,000. Now let's say 10,000 of them were purchased and 40,000 of them are junk. Okay. Now these things, if you don't want to deflate the value of the thing that you have previously made, you're not going to, wholesale them off. You're going to maybe do some sales, and then they're going to go in a bin, and the bin will get sent to a landfill, and that's where a lot of plastics currently reside within the toy industry, which is a shame. Now, you can say this for any kind of physical manufacturing you want. They're going to sit in a warehouse. They're going to get shipped overseas. That's a carbon footprint. They're going to get shipped to their local distribution warehouses, more carbon footprint, and then last mile delivery, which is another carbon footprint. We take all of that into consideration and then look at the advantages of 3D printing with companies that are out there now that actually will print for you, or if you are selling a file to an end user that has a 3D printer in the future, you have now made one product for one individual buyer. There is no carbon footprint other than the electricity that it costs to manufacture the one piece that was needed to be created, and you don't have the shipping costs associated, you don't have the inventory overhead for your business that you need to maintain, and you don't have the waste and the gamble that you have. So there's a whole lot of very beneficial things that are involved. Now, Kevin talked about this before in the face shields, which you can see on the left side of your screen over there. This was one way that we were able to create or alleviate, I should say, a gap in the supply chain demand when COVID was happened in this country. So there was three things that are on this page that were in short supply, which we were able to compensate for. Not us personally, we were able to do the face shield initiative with our supplies, but N95 masks were a problem to get. Ventilator tubes were a problem, and COVID-19 tests. Okay, the nasal swabs, those were a problem. They're not on this page, but those were another thing that were 3D printed, and these face shields. Now, we were able to print, like you saw in the other previous pictures in here, these face shields. These face shields were donated, but there was other people who were selling them, and companies that were profiting because they were able to take machines that could make anything. They could set them up to make a product that was viable in that moment without any tooling that was necessary, sell them all or donate them all in our case. And then when there was not a need anymore, you can switch your CAD design file and start manufacturing something else without having to eat the costs of the tooling to manufacture some of these things from the get-go. And these, I'm sure saved a lot of people for their health and their life. Another thing in the industry that's being used for 3D printing that we do some of at this university as well is we make prosthetics for the needy. And so if you think about, I want to take this model, healthcare industry that will take 3D printing and make something that was very, very cost prohibitive accessible. This hand that's in the top center of this screen, this is an open source file that we have used at the university to help people through the Enable Foundation. And what this does is it lets kids who otherwise would, their insurance or their families, if they didn't have insurance, would have to spend upwards of $10,000 to $50,000 for a prosthetic. And a growing kid, I have two of them, they're going to go through these hands like they go through sneakers. Okay, they're very, very expensive, and they're only for a certain size body type. They can be adjusted a little bit, but then they're going to be no good when they get too small for their bodies. So the manufacturing cost for one of these prosthetic hands that we used and have tested and donated is between $30 to $40, depending on how much material you're going to use and the screws and everything that's involved. So for that materials and electricity cost that's in there, you're able to give a kid the ability to have a limb through prosthetics that they otherwise wouldn't have the ability to use. And think about, instead of having to go to a visit in order to get these things adjusted or modified, or if something breaks, if you have a 3D printer at your house and you have a disability where you have need a prosthetic limb, if anything ever goes bad, you can literally just print a bigger size for yourself. You can reprint, a pinky that may have broken off of the device or something like that because it got batted around too hard. And that could be a $2 fix instead of hundreds of dollars in a healthcare system to do this. So this really amazing dynamic of how these things are being used just in terms of the plastics in the healthcare industry, as you just seen. Now they're printing bioprinting, which is printing organs now with stem cells and all sorts of other things. But another mechanical process that we're not using at the school, but is involved in is aerospace and automotive. So I talked about automotive, but aerospace They're using these things to build the components inside of engines, the housings for airplanes, and again, in these very, very complicated shapes that otherwise would not be able to be created through regular mechanical tooling process of milling machines. We're able to 3D print solid metal parts that can go directly and be dropped into things like, jet engines, and they work. And so again, you're going to see this already seeing this new technology. This company Stratasys, and they're a big one in the industry. And they're working with automotive and aerospace and other industries. They are already embedding themselves into the way that big manufacturing is going to be using these products, as well as small end manufacturing for people who are prototyping and developing. And prototyping and developing, we have the ability to use here. We got about 50 of these printers that aren't going to do aerospace metal housings, but that use plastics and some specialty kind of materials at the school. Not all of them are completely run 24 hours a day because of the situation that we have with the operations of our labs, but we are able to do this. So if there are people and that have a idea that they want to see through, we are able to get you prototypes through Kevin and myself this semester. And the way that you're going to be able to do that is this really, really intuitive system. It's called Tinkercad. And Tinkercad, instead of doing demos today, Kevin, I'm just sort of giving this out there. If in case people are interested, Tinkercad is a free web-based CAD design system that is built from the ground up from this company Autodesk. They're industry leaders in very, very high-end CAD design programs, but this was built from the ground up for K through 12. So people with absolutely no idea how to model can go in, see some instructional videos, drag and drop some stuff out there. And if you use the rulers and the snap tools on this, that's my little, 2 cents if you're going to do this. Things are very, very mechanically accurate. I have created things around my house with my 3D printers, pieces for my lawnmowers that broke that I just designed pieces in this for and slapped into the lawnmowers and used, things for blinds at my house, different kind of washers. I have a friend that made, pieces for his old dishwasher that broke that he couldn't get parts for anymore. And he just took the old piece and designed them and 3D printed them and put them back in. But, and it was all done with this particular program. So just because it's geared towards kids that are in elementary through high school, don't knock the limitations. I definitely give this a really, really high endorsement for starting a CAD programming. So, you would be inundated with learning new software from the ground up if you were to get something out for this class. However, if you spent a couple hours tinkering with Tinkercad after you set up an account for yourself, you're going to be able to just go straight through and get a good idea of what it is that you want to use. So that's kind of the 3D printing. And I lean heavily on that because 3D printing is readily available at the university. We have tons of materials for it and is a really, really robust way of making three-dimensional objects if you're looking for a viable prototype. The other thing that I did want to show briefly is that we do have a laser cutter. So laser cutters, I will just play this little video for you to give you some ideas. We have one, it's not this brand, but it's essentially does exactly the same thing. And so what I want to do is just show you this little demo of what this little Glowforge does so you can get an idea.
Meet Glowforge, the 3D laser printer. Start with a design that you download or create. Choose from dozens of materials, even recycled cardboard. The laser cuts and engraves your design. It's precise to the width of a human hair, so it's easy to assemble remarkable things. Use your Mac, PC, or tablet to drag your design into place. Print from organic material like wood, leather, paper, cloth, even chocolate. Sometimes you don't want to design from scratch. Print from the Glowforge catalog. You can resize and personalize to make it perfect for you. Your design can be as simple as a photo. Your favorite apps like Photoshop and Illustrator can print directly to create physical objects. Glowforge cuts holes with such precision that you can lace up leather like a shoe. If you draw material with an ordinary pen, dual cameras create a 3D image of your material and your drawing.
Ours doesn't do that, by the way, just to throw that in there and watch the rest.
Forge will engrave and cut directly over the ink. Then it's as easy to make a dozen copies as it is to make just one. Glowforge has autofocus that can follow curved surfaces like this MacBook. Cameras automatically identify what you put inside, so it's safe to personalize your laptop with designs from the catalog or your own photos and text. You can make a daily essential, a unique gift, a thriving business, or you can just make lunch. You don't have to be a clothing designer, an artist, or a pastry chef. You can build a mansion without being an architect. Glowforge is a tool that's easy enough and safe enough for anyone to use. Unlike this drone with rubber band Gatling guns. We've been working hard to make something amazing for you. I'm Dan Shapiro, and this is Glowforge. Our team has built everything from cell phones to search engines, but this is something different. I have one in my home. I want you to have one too.
Okay. So those are really the two big drivers that we have at this university. We do have the Cricut. Kevin knows a little bit better about the Cricut than I do because I haven't played with it very much, but it is essentially a vinyl cutter. And the vinyl cutter will be able, similar like the Glowforge, cut out of materials, but they're usually adhesives or leathers or papers and things like that that you can then use for other projects. But the majority of them, those are going to be the 3D printers that we have available. We are going to have the laser cutter, one laser cutter that we have. We have about 50 3D printers, and then we have the Cricut. And so with those things, those are really some rapid prototyping tools that we have available at the university for your disposal to use, and would be happy to help you if you are in need of developing a prototype for your projects. Any questions? And that's kind of the end of my presentation, but are there any questions about, thank you, so far before we No?
So, and Max, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. Kevin, I can, by the way, send you the slideshow for the 3D printing, and if you want to put it up on your Blackboard course.
Yeah, I can put it up on Canvas, and I've been recording the session too as well, so the students can always look back on it. So, just some thoughts, guys, about it. I know that, sometimes when we think about prototyping, we get tunnel vision as to kind of what we can do. Some of you guys have services. Some of you guys have an idea for a product that you want to offer. For example, Studio to Go wants to create a mobile, studio. Now, obviously, in the duration of this class, we may not be able to get to that part at all probably this semester, but what we can do is start to model what that could look like. So that's where 3D printing could come in as an early way of prototyping that in your second iteration, so someone can see kind of what the studio model would look like in terms of putting something inside a van, right? So like, for example, Max also has showed me Thingiverse, which is actually a tool that you can use to kind of find early mock-ups of prototypes of people of like a van or something of that nature. And you can use that as a tool, slice it open, just to show what it would look like inside for those of you working on that. I also thought Max's presentation was really good in terms of explaining why people do prototypes first versus building these high-end products immediately, because it does save money when we can test out something where we could pull something out that isn't working in our product early on in the process. So there's a lot of value in terms of that kind of conversation. Now, for many of you, some of you may not be working on physical prototypes this season. Max and I are also pretty good in terms of, well, Max is better than I am in terms of digital prototyping, in terms of like not just CAD design, but also in digital design. So if you guys are designing something on Adobe Photoshop, InDesign, Dreamweaver, if any of these sound familiar, Max and I have used those products before, and we can help you in that regard as well. So I think those are some key things that to keep in mind. If you guys are drawing something, Max also clearly can draw. So you're more than I and him are more than happy to look at anything you're working on as well. So it's not just about necessarily, one, 3D printing is a critical and good tool that even if you guys are not going to be doing that for this particular project, you guys are also, as young entrepreneurs, might be building products right now on your own spare time that may need something to help you to model it. This is one way of doing that. So there could be a lot of value there as well. So I'm really happy that he was able to stop in to discuss that with us today, especially because sometimes we don't know where to begin, but we got to start somewhere, and this is one pathway of doing that.
There is one other tool that I forgot to mention, Kevin, and you just spurred it on. For those of you who are intimidated by design but have a physical object that they need to make into a CAD design file, we do have 3D scanners as well in our labs. So we could actually use our handheld 3D scanners and take a real physical object and turn it into a digital file. So you wouldn't have to start from the beginning. You could take that digital file as a base model and then take it into something like Tinkercad and cut it up and make it any way you want.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, Max. And that's a good point. We were messing around with it before the pandemic started, and unfortunately, it was something I wanted to learn as well. So, and that's great. With that being said, do you guys have any other questions or comments about the presentation? Any concerns?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation. I thought it was really cool. I learned about 3D printing first at a social goods summit a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's like a major avenue to creating social change. And that was the whole presentation. And I just think it's really cool the way you broke it down, because to me, it kind of is a very abstract concept. Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, but I really appreciate it.
No, yeah, thank you. I think that it is kind of strange, especially because it's not a mainstream tool yet, but it is emerging. It's going to be, in my opinion, and some others as well, it's a disruptive technology. So this is going to be one of those technologies that is going to fundamentally change over time the way that people conduct their business and behave in their lives. Think about when smartphones were introduced and we no longer had to use keyboards or something like that. When we all carried cell phones, that's been your whole life probably, but not mine. There's these fundamental things like what happened before we had microwave ovens or cars and we were using horses and buggies. These kind of things, these disruptive technologies are things that once they're implemented, they will fundamentally change the way that the world behaves. And I think there's so many good things that are attributes that I went over with 3D printing in particular, that they have this huge potential and upside in the future. And those abstract ideas become more and more concrete as we get into market saturation with these, which is starting to happen over the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. I'm looking forward to it kind of coming more into the mainstream.
And I just wanted to add, just also saying thank you. It's something that I was always interested in, so to get like a more in-depth, understanding of it, it's definitely something like a tool on my belt, just an extra tool that I have if needed. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
From a more mature person's perspective, one of the first things I thought of is like, how is that going to affect the workforce? Because it seems like it's in a step in a direction of AI and everything like that. That's a concern for me, that fewer workers will be needed for mass production. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's companies out there that are using these 3D printers, and they have employees, and they do end-to-end right now. But I think the main difference is that it doesn't get rid of manufacturing. It gets rid of some transportation jobs for sure, because you're going to cut out on a lot of transportation. Although I think that you could say that Amazon has completely filled that gap for us right now. But necessarily, I think that if it's a reduction of jobs that will impact us negatively, okay, it's like transportation is a carbon detriment right now to the earth. If you take those things and you put those in for manufacturing jobs that are friendlier to the environment, it's a benefit. There's also, you might not need, as a business owner, to employ 100 people to make the product that you want, but I think there's just overall there is a evolutionary change that will continue to happen. I mean, there was before the Industrial Revolution, there was a different way that people made all of their livings, and as we go into it, and manufacturing becomes huge, and as we evolve out of it, things will just sort of evolve. I think we'll all end up working with the robots as opposed to not working. We'll work with them. They're good at some tasks and not others.
Yeah. No empathy there. Thank you very much.
And it's interesting. We actually have we have about 2 or a couple of robots in our college office right now, and unfortunately they're not programmed, so they only do a certain number of things though. But if we can get to that point, I think there's a lot of value there. But we also have to be mindful, and that's something that we're trying to figure out. That I don't know. I would say there'll be less jobs necessarily, but there'll be different jobs, and so skill sets will change on top of that. So I think it's an interesting conversation that we can have. So, what's great about what's great about the presentation, guys, is that it offers you kind of a different perspective on it versus just simply, like, where do we take abstract ideas and make them as tangible as possible? And so there are many ways of doing that. And so, during the next part of the course today, it's really on you guys. You guys are going to be on your own, split up in groups again. And this time around, you guys are going to start talking about what is your game plan to creating your first prototype, right? So you could use 3D printing for some things. It may not be the tool you may want to use, but the most important thing is that you have something that can showcase what your idea is in terms of what you learned from your customer interviews, and then what you're going to take out of it now as well. So let's give Max another round of applause or a clap or whatever, however we want to do it as well. But having said that, I think at this point we're going to take a short break, probably about 5-10 minutes, probably let's say 5 for now. And, at that point, we're going to come back and split up. The next part of the class for you guys is simply this. We're going to actually break you guys into groups. You guys will have the rest of the class to talk amongst yourselves. You do not have to stay the whole hour or left. You can make a game plan and leave, but at least you guys should be talking amongst yourselves to figure out what you have to do over the next 2 weeks. So when we come back, I'll talk about the next phase of the project, and we'll take it from there. All right? Cool.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Max. I appreciate it.
For the next meeting.
I'll see you in about an hour or 2. So one after another. So I'll see you then. All right. Bye. All right, folks. So we're going to take a quick break. And I'll see you guys, let's say 12:37. All right. So quick break. All right, folks, we're back. So can everybody just give me a holler, just or some type of notification, let me know you're here. Great. Perfect. Good. Great. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, guys. You know, it's funny. It seems like I had promised that the classes might end sooner, but I'm finding that there's a lot of good material that we do go through in the class. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, well, you know, the class could be long, but at least it's interesting, and vice versa, or it could be not as interesting and just too short. Those are the things that could happen. But I am happy that at least I think a lot of you guys got a sense of a couple of things that came out of the presentation. What do you guys think of the presentation overall? Would you like more guest speakers like that to come in to talk to you guys a little bit about some of their trials about being an entrepreneur or innovation in that matter?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah. Awesome. Patty, you had a question?
No, not a question. I was just going to state, yeah, I like that, because I had heard about the 3D stuff, but from Edric's, but and then I saw the news reports of them making face masks, but I was like, how does that work? So that was good perspective to actually see that being built, literally.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Personally speaking, Max was a huge help personally for me. I'll give you guys a quick story. As I don't know if I mentioned this at all, but it's not something you normally mention in class. My wife's a doctor. She was a resident, during COVID as well. And, unfortunately her hospital did not have the supplies that they needed. So when I had called Max one afternoon and said, you guys have any face shields? Because they really have nothing. He came through, and he had sent over 50 face shields. I was really impressed with the quality of it. And honestly became a huge help during that time. So, it's always good to kind of see different people. Over the next couple of weeks, I will have guest speakers. I may or may not announce them before the class starts, but if I have them as they come up, I will make sure I mention that. I know that I mentioned that Jervil Purcell, who is CEO and founder of Wave Entertainment, which is an up-and-coming streaming service that will help young artists, is going to be stopping by in the next couple of weeks in October. But I'll have a couple more people coming in. So, it'll be less of me talking sometimes, but also more of them kind of just communicating some of the things that they are learning out in the industry right now, especially during the time of COVID as well. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of it. I always do when I talk to Max. And with that being said, a couple of other things I want to also talk about. I've already mentioned about the extra credit pitch, Johnny. I will be listing that on the course website, so you guys can take advantage of that. Again, it's a 3-minute video that you submit online for the competition. I encourage everyone here should at least think of a business idea that they would like to pitch, and please submit to the competition. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you guys as well. The second thing is about the group project. So one of the challenges that I know about working in groups, and probably, yeah, sure, you can pitch your vegan ice cream as well. That'd be a fantastic idea, Patty. So that's great. And yes, the Hergenrother is the same Hergenrother, by the way. So that's her son. So.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. So as you guys are aware, Max Hergenrother's mother used to work at the university. She used to be working in our provost office. So same relation as well. And she's also a professor
actually,
here.
I was just going to say she is my professor this month, this semester.
Oh, you're saying
that's why I made the connection. I'm like, hey, wait, that's not it's not like Smith.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely.
I asked him too, but he might not have saw it in the
I don't think he did though, but I'll mention that to him. It's funny because Diane actually took over my other management class, so I was supposed to teach the management 1001 as well.
That's probably
Yeah,
okay.
So that you never know, things like this happen. But having said that, about the project. I know that many of you guys, this is very intense working in groups, especially over Zoom. Just so we're clear, towards the end of the semester, I will be sending out a peer evaluation form. So everyone in the class will be able to evaluate the contributions of other people in their groups. So, I know that many of you probably are curious and wondering, this person's not pulling their weight. I don't know that 100%. but I rely on you guys to be fair to each other. So I will be offering a peer evaluation form, and grades will be adjusted for the final project based on what I receive. So honestly, just stay in contact with each other. I know that this is not the funnest way to meet as a group, but I also think that as long as you guys are investing the time, this should not be a bad project to work on. I think it's going to be pretty intensive, but also you'll learn a lot in the process, and it should be fun as well. So, if you guys have any concerns about, people not pulling their weight, continue working as a team, reach out to them, and just know that there is always an evaluation form at the end of the class as well. So I get a chance to see how these folks are doing. Does that make sense? Is that fair to everybody so far who are here today?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So
you get one too.
Yeah, great. If you guys want to evaluate me, feel free. I can take all the criticism.
No, I mean, they do ask for the students
Yes.
to evaluate the professors.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's still the case, but
they will. In fact, they're still doing peer evaluations right now, as well as faculty are evaluating other faculty in this moment, in this time. But yes, that still will be happening. So you guys have a chance to evaluate myself as well, to see if the class was worth your time. I hope it was, but you know what? It's up to you guys to determine that for yourselves. But having said that, there will be a group evaluation that you guys will receive as well for each of you to evaluate the members of your team. Having said that, what I want to do at this time is talk a little bit about the next phase of the project, which is the low fidelity prototype. So I'm going to share my screen for a second. And we're going to kind of dig into it now at this point. Let's see, share button. Perfect. Great. So, in module 4, which is this module here today that we are talking through, a lot of the same things we talked about today about prototyping, what we talked about today, everything here is we basically went over almost the entirety of module 4 here, the ways to prototype. There's a video of me talking about it. If you guys want to listen, feel free, not required. But the basics behind 3D printing, if you think you're going to use 3D printing during COVID-19, the Adobe Cloud products, if you are interested in using those. And then finally, in module 4, is building the low fidelity prototype. So the goal of this particular project is to design and build what we call the low fidelity prototype, which is really a quick and easy way to translate your high concepts into a tangible product, right? Or some things that someone can look at, right? So there's a couple of concepts that I want to make sure it's clear. We got to consider the visual design of whatever prototype you choose to do, the content, like what are the key elements you want to include in this early version of it, and finally, how can someone, like a real human, interact with it, or what we call interactivity. And obviously, because we are in, we're taking this class remote, it's kind of hard to do that, that capacity. Just gonna look at the chat real quick. Yes, William had a question. Can you pitch the group project we're working on to? Oh, I'm sorry, this was an earlier question, but I'll respond here. Can you pitch the group project you guys, if you guys want to pitch, and William, I hope you don't mind if I just throw that out there to the entire class. If you want to use your pitch Johnny project, if you want to use your project for this class and pitch it, you most certainly can. That's also a possibility. If you do that, I think there's a limitation on the number of students who can interact on the pitch. I think it's about 2 people, but at the same time, if you do that, just let me know, and I'll set up a special project or assignment on I'll set up a special project that we can look at on there as well. And another question that came in, I hope you don't mind. I know that some of these are private, but sometimes the answers are applicable. I can also look to change the model of how the modules come out. So I can try to see if I can make the model a little easier for some of you guys, if you guys are thinking like it might be a little hard to review or to see. So I'll try to mess around with it in a little bit, as well. But for now, just know that when you go through the module, it usually takes everything straight step by step. But honestly, the easiest way is to kind of go into the first piece of it, which is probably the first section, and then just go next step by step. So if it's easier that way, and if not, then I could talk about maybe changing the model of it so it looks a little different. But for now, just go to the first page of the module and always go through it step by step if it's easier that way, okay? So having said that, you know, when we go to module 4, in module 4, each team is going to be expected to create a prototype of their early idea, right? So you got to create at least some type of preliminary draft, or basically, you know, as what me and my colleagues call a fake version of your product, for the purposes of the key thing is visualizing what you want to accomplish, right? So in this case, your early version is just going to be used as a way of ensuring that people get a chance to see a little bit of what you're working on, and more importantly, be able to give you feedback and suggestions on how to improve it, right? So essentially, the key thing is that whatever you decide to create should be visual enough, right? And so that's the key thing that I want to stress in this class. It should be visual enough so we can look at it and see what you're looking to create. So, you know, for example, you could be creating like an app. A lot of folks like to create apps, a website, right? Logos, brochures, or even other graphic objects you might look to create. Sometimes you may do a physical product, right? You could be 3D printing, what we had just talked about, or even just using paper and tape to craft the model. That's also okay as well. You can also do something like a storyboard or graphic simulation, and even an ad campaign to show your support or to show the key things that will go into building of your product. So for example, if you're creating a not-for-profit, you know, how do you make a not-for-profit feel real? A logo is helpful. In like catchphrases, things that talk about what the product would look like, right? Any combination of those items, it will be critical for what you're doing in this class. So what I'd like to see is I want you guys to submit your creation either in a PDF file, or if you need to use it as, or you need to set it up as a website, you can send us the link to the website. But the key thing is you need to submit it as a file. So whether it's a link to the website, or whether it's some type of product, or some type of like website, just something that you just need to submit it into Canvas. And you also want to submit a brief paper addressing the following: the name and description of the prototype, the problem it solves, mentioning users' concerns and pains, or how they want what they want to be solved, the value proposition, how it helps users and why it's better than existing solutions. So you want to mention 2 or 3 key benefits, and just a list of the minimum set of functions the prototype has at this phase. So essentially, the whole idea over the next 2 weeks is to create your early prototype and to write a paper just on those 4 elements, okay? And for next week, while it's not 100% due by next week, I would like for you guys to try your best to create an early version of it, even if it's not 100% completed as a prototype, but just something, just some elements of something that you can use so that you can start testing your, what we call your minimum viable product with other users. And so next week, we're going to talk a little bit about testing your MVP with other people as well, okay? So with that being said, you know, you guys have the duration of the end of the course to work together as a team. You do not have to stay the entire like half hour at this point, but what I would recommend is spend some time to talk about the following with your team. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint for that purpose. I want you guys to talk about, you know, a game plan for building your prototype, and also getting your paper done. Like, you guys should talk as a team what you guys are going to do and how you guys are going to break it out. What are you building over the next 2 weeks, right? Is it going to be an app? Is it going to be a website? Is it going to be like just maybe mock-ups or early pictures or drawings of what you want to do? Question you may need to ask yourself is, do we have enough data? Should we conduct more interviews with other people? Do we need help? Do we need additional knowledge or skills that we should build upon, right? And ultimately, what skills does the team currently have to produce a low fidelity prototype? So we should be exploring exactly what do you guys know how to do, right? And all of you guys have something that is valuable to this process. So what I like to make sure that you guys are doing is really kind of talking amongst yourselves and coming up with something, okay? So with that being said, you know, does anybody have any questions about this process or things that I should be going over?
So we could use like a website as a prototype, right?
Correct.
For like drawing of what we want to do.
Yes, exactly. You can use a website as a starting point. Eventually, you want to build more usability in the website as you go to round 2 of this. But for the early phases, if you're thinking, I just want to make people see what I want to do and just to talk with them, that is perfectly fine, Dennis. The most important thing that you're doing in this phase is doing something quick, but gives people an idea of what you're looking to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right. All right. So I'm gonna break you guys up again into your groups. Looks like all the breakout rooms are all set up again, except for whatever reason we're missing. Let's see here, Devon, who's in your group again? Because I'm missing one person from your group. Who's in group
Brianna.
C? Brianna. Okay.
I'm in it too. So I changed my thing.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to add you to that room then, Colleen.
Oh, we'll call him. Yeah.
I don't know why it. Here we go. Okay, great. So I'm gonna open the rooms now, and I'll be on the call still. But if so, at this point, what I'll say is this: you guys have the rest of the class to figure out what you're gonna do. If you guys, figure it out in like 15 minutes and feel like you guys want to leave early, you can do so right from the breakout room. You do not have to come back to the main room at this point. Up to you guys. But my suggestion is use this time, since you guys are together, to have this conversation now, so that you guys are prepared to build out what you need to build out. Okay, so this is a building. This is where we start to kind of converge together. Okay, so I'm opening up rooms now, and I'll see you guys on the other side. I'll stop into the rooms, and I'll be on the call still, but I'll just stop in every so often. Okay.
Oh shit.
Sorry, guys. That's my fault. It's my fault. Don't worry.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I only set it for 6 minutes. I didn't want the room to close on itself. But I'm gonna reopen the rooms now. So,
Okay.
All right, there you go.
sites and stuff, not necessarily like the history, but I still think that could be incorporated. Hi, Professor. We're talking about creating an app.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's cool. What are you thinking in terms of the app that's the way that you want to go with this? Like, what are some of the user what are some of the features that you would like this app to have?
That's what we were just discussing. So like one thing was like to give resources. So as far as people not being able to afford to go travel, one thing that we said we can do is like offer resources or things that you can do within your community to immerse yourself in different cultures and things like that. So maybe the app can have like a feature that like allows you to go, well, not allow you to go anywhere, but like tell you places that you can go within your own community, or like say if you're gonna go travel somewhere, like you can use the app to like, oh, the app already has like a list of museums, food, or places for me to try.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. That's cool. I mean, honestly, what's cool is that apps are one thing you can use. You know, consider that if you do use an app, that users may choose to keep an app on their phone, but they also could delete it. So, you know, so just be mindful of that too as well. I mean, for early prototype, that's not a bad thing for you to go out and test. So I think like that could be a good way of approaching it, to say, if you have this app, you know, would you keep this app on your phone? What's the use of it? How do you think about it? Like that. So those are the questions that I would just be ready to keep in the back of your mind. But not a bad idea to start off with. Okay.
Like a website too, though. I think a website would be key in this area as well.
Yeah.
Right.
I kind of think
definitely.
And an app either one would be just like adjacent to the actual program. Like it wouldn't be like the product, it would just be like part of it, and like that would be guiding, because like obviously the actual program is like being like led like through our organization, being led to different places in the city or abroad. But
because in the end, we also just want people to be knowledgeable of the program. It's like you said, not everyone's going to want to download an app. Like the app will be more of like user friendly instead of like just informational.
Yeah, totally. I think honestly, those are just two ways of looking at it. So mobile, web, app. I mean, either way, like there's always a value proposition that can start with. So it's a good starting point to kind of get, because you have to do another customer interview. I mean, I think as you guys all assume that. So it's going to be a good way of segueing into that too. So good work. I will also be, after the class today, I'm going to send an email out to my colleague over at Global Studies to see if they'd be willing to sit down and chat with you guys about this as well. And then you guys will then be in charge of setting up the meeting with that person, creating the WebEx, whatever you guys need to do. And, you know, I will just, and then you just report back what happens. All right? Cool. Good job, guys.
Hi.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
Good.
We're spitballing.
You're what now? I'm sorry?
We're spitballing ideas.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm just stopping into each group to see how everyone's doing, and any thoughts, if you have any questions for me as well.
We kind of, well, William, you said you kind of wanted to do like a website and a logo.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a good starting point, especially for this concept and idea. Like, you know, in terms of like finding out, like, you know, what we're looking at, some simple ideas, even mock-up drawings of like what that van or what that studio to go would look like. So, you know, if that's still something you're considering as the main idea in this project. So you guys have options, certainly. There's no limitations really at this time, except for, remember, you don't have to build the van out that might be a project for like years to come, but at least it's a starting point to kind of figure out the key elements that you should be, focusing in on as well. Okay? Cool. All right, folks. So I'll be here if you guys need anything, and, we'll take it from there. So, all right?
All right, thank you.
Like the top. Oh, there he is.
Hello.
So I don't know if you were understanding my chat about trying to do a reverse chronology of the modules, just to put like module 4, what we're working now, up on top. You know what I'm saying?
I see.
And then it can go in the order that it normally is to go next. But I was saying this I'm finding this with all my classes. You know, as weeks go on, I'm spending more time scrolling
Yeah.
down.
Oh yeah,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's an easy one. No, I hear what you're saying 100%. Yeah, that's an easy one. I'm gonna probably unlock the module for the week. You know, and you know what I'll do is I'll also change the prerequisites to unlock the prerequisites off finishing one module. But the sad part is that some students may not have finished module 3 and they still need to go to module 4. The reality is now, at this point, you know, you should be able to get in there. But yeah, that's a quick, easy fix. I just move it all the way out too. So very good. I'll take a look at that later today. Okay. Do you guys have any questions for me so far? Anything that's come up in your conversations?
Elliot?
We just wanted to just confirm. So the next assignment, which is basically the first prototype, that's due on the 27th, right? There's nothing in between.
The first prototype, actually, believe it or not, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. The actual final prototype, like for phase 1, is due October 4th, right? But it'd be nice if you guys have some sort of kind of prototype to look at next week, like even if it's not 100% done, but some elements of it, because next week we're also going to be doing like some early interviews with some customers who may want to look at your prototype. So basically, have something looked at. It doesn't have to be completed, but ultimately, like the first phase of that prototype 1 is due October 4th. So you have about 2 weeks starting from today.
Wait, so what's due on the 27th then? Because the 4th is, I think, was that 3 weeks now? Almost?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me look at the assignments really quickly just to make sure I didn't miss something. What's due on the 27th, which is a part of that process, is doing an MVP test. So essentially the prototype itself, you know, throughout the next duration of the next 2 weeks into the 4th, you're going to also be conducting a quick prototype test of what you have. So basically, it kind of flows into 2 phases where it's like the final piece of this prototype is due on the 4th, but in between, you should be interviewing people with your prototype, you know, so that they can see what it's all about. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but the first phase of this really, you know, is really just starting to kind of figure out what the prototype is going to look like. I may change the due date of that, the MVP test to the week after. I'm not sure yet, but basically just start to kind of think about that concept or that idea. Okay?
Okay, gotcha. So it seems like a lot of stuff is still moving around. So for right now,
it flows.
The 27th. Okay, go ahead.
For now, yeah, I was gonna say it flows constantly in this class.
Gotcha.
So sometimes due dates may change, and I do that for now, like just to see where people are flowing in between. Like for example, even in the interview phase, it seemed like you guys want to do more interviews. That's totally fine. It's unlimited, so you can go back in and resubmit the entire project again if you want. So you know the whole point of this is that we have set due dates so that we can have some type of structure, but at the same time we flow differently because you know
it's a creative process. Yeah,
exactly. I'm not limited by that. When I do that so that at least I have something to grade you guys when the midterms come. Oh yeah, I got to talk about that. You know,
wait, what?
Yeah, we got midterms. I'll go back at each group and tell you guys separately, so you guys don't have to come back to the main group. But essentially, the midterm for this class is going to be 3 questions, and it's going to be basically essay questions. That's it. And you know, I can't do multiple choice for this class. I just don't think there's a lot of multiple choice things to ask. But it's going to be just understanding how you guys like understand the concepts that we talk about, like the creative mindsets. We're going to talk a little bit about early prototyping concepts and things of that nature. So we're not talking anything too major. I will have more details about what that midterm will look like, but just so you guys are aware, we will have a midterm in this class.
So it's going to be on the materials, the PowerPoints that you're presenting, and that human-driven, the IDEO book and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything that's in there. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So and I would recommend. I'll say this. You know, please don't like plagiarize directly from the book. I know obviously all my material is available online. I just want to hear how you guys are understanding the concepts more than just repeating exactly what is in the book. You know, there are key things that you should know, the 7 mindsets, those things. And then after that, it's just really understanding if you guys are evaluating things for yourselves effectively. So The midterm, I will probably send an email about the midterm separately. I have to still develop the 3 questions, but essentially this essay questions, probably minimum 2 paragraphs for each question. Obviously write more, do more, and explain more, and you get better grades for it. That's really fun.
And when will that be?
Something tells me I have to take a look at the calendar. I think I'm going to have it submitted by the 27th, which is why my date for the Arla project might change as well. So we may have
of this month?
Yeah, of this month. Unfortunately, it has to come. Yeah, because the midterm grades are due a little earlier because we started earlier. So I have I have to submit something. So I'll talk about that. It's not going to be due for a little while, but I will send an email first, and we'll talk about it next week's class as well. So okay.
Good.
But the good news is it's essay, so it's not too bad, I think, overall. So, all right?
Right. Okay, thanks, Professor.
All right, folks.
Have a good week.
Thanks, you too. I think breakout room 1 already left, so I guess I'm going to have to send that email to them as well.
Wow.
All right, very good. All right, see you guys.
All right.
It's okay. What time?
Hey, folks. I was just mentioning to each group, sorry to interrupt, that you guys will have a midterm that is due probably before the end of the month, because midterm grades are due. I need to submit something. But basically, the midterm is going to be 3 questions, essay questions. That's all it is. It's going to be on concepts we talked about throughout the class. And essentially, the minimum for each question is at least 2 paragraphs. Obviously, you do more, I evaluate it, and I'll see, and your grades will ultimately change based upon that, but the goal ultimately is to answer each question effectively. We're talking about things like the first chapter on creative mindsets, the second chapter on, not second chapter, but rather the concepts on prototyping we talked about today. So it's just 3 questions. So, you use material that you've seen in the class. I just ask that you don't directly copy from the material, rather you paraphrase and make it up to that, and make up what you've learned so far, and to adjust that accordingly. Okay.
Okay. Is that gonna be? So that's gonna be not like a timed test. It's gonna be.
No, it's gonna be basically I'm gonna release it. You all will log on and do it on your own spare time. It's not timed at all. In fact, I care more about the quality of what you're saying versus timing you guys for an hour and a half. That's stupid. Personally, if this is my management class, I do have true, false, and multiple choice. But the reality is that I don't have an exact real textbook for this class, so it's not like I can do that either. So having said that, it's more of an interpretation of the material that you have. Colleen, you probably have seen a lot of this in your government politics classes. It's very much like that here too as well.
Yeah, definitely essay style. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, very good. So I'll leave you guys to it, and I'll probably send an email to the rest of the class. Group 1 has already left already, so I think they already have a game plan for what they're going to do. But feel free to take as much time as you want. The rooms will close automatically for you guys. And I might close them a little early because unfortunately, even I have to go back to my work, back to my job, so I can't have Zoom on at the same time too. So, all right.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, folks.
The 27th. breaking.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We had good.
Cool.
We were actually we kind of got off topic. We were discussing a book.
Sorry, we were discussing books.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. So unfortunately, I do have to go, so I have to close the entire Zoom chat. But feel free to pick up a chat on pick up and chat on WebEx if you guys like to. And if you guys need any assistance on this, or if you guys, I think you guys seem like you already have a game plan. You're just chilling right now a little bit, which is fantastic.
We got a little further actually too. We had came up with another idea as far as like a travel journal.
Yeah. Oh, that's even more fantastic actually too as well. So you guys can iterate and create different ideas, but ultimately try to get to one that you think will work best here. So, having said that, I'm gonna probably close the room for now. Are you guys cool with that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Probably
So
see you Friday.
Yeah.
Yes, I will. I'm gonna send an email after my next. Unfortunately, I'm stuck on another 3 different calls after this, but I will send an email to Matt Pucciarelli right after this as well. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Take care, guys. All right.
Yeah. You too. Have a good
Bye.
day.
You too. Bye.